What on earth can we expect at Leicester City next season? They've just suffered relegation. There's a new manager in there, ownership issues, and a potential points deduction coming down the line. But they tend to do very well when they're in the Championship. There's a very good squad still there. And they, of course, have that year one parachute payment to help what could be another promotion push. I appeared on the Blue Tinted Glasses YouTube channel talking to Lox about Ipswich, but he stayed on to the end to answer all my questions about what on earth is going to be going down at Leicester next year. Here's a clip. Okay, so we're just on the back end of the 20-minute Rivals segment over on the Blue Tinted Glasses channel with Lox. You can check that out. We'll link that one up at the end of the video. That was all me talking about Ipswich, though, which people have heard a million times, Lox. I want to talk to you about Leicester. And I went to get my groceries this morning. I thought, what am I going to ask him? What's the first question? And I think what I want to ask is, do Leicester, and the other team I came up with was Watford, have the most range in where they could finish in the Championship table this year? Because I could see Leicester finishing first, but I could also see chaos and problems and see Leicester finishing like 16th or something and having a transition season. I don't know why Watford's the other team that's coming to my head there, who could just like randomly finish third or finish bottom. But what is your feeling on the dynamic range of the possibilities for what the hell could happen at Leicester this season?
Yeah, I think you're bang on, to be honest, mate. Especially with points deductions looming. I've been listening to Kieran Maguire and Stefan Borst and all of these guys, and Rob Dorset as well. He's been quite vocal. He reckons 9 points. Others think 15. So, you never know how a team is going to react to a relegation as well. That's something to factor in. I mean, you look at Luton, what happened last season. That was a car crash, really. So there is, of course, worry about that. But I think the majority of Leicester fans, and I'll include myself in this, is we're not expecting to win the league. There isn't that expectation like last time of absolutely destroying the Championship, and I think a lot of Leicester fans would be quite happy with playoffs, considering the PSR problems, the financial issues surrounding the club, of course, the expectancy that we're going to lose players, of course. But I will say that even 2 years ago, there were some Leicester fans that did think we could go down back to back. We could be relegated again, even with Keane and Dewsbury Hall and some of these players, Jamie Vardy. And we all know it was never anywhere near as bad as that. So I hear what you're saying, and I do see where you're coming from. But personally, I think, the worst case scenario for Leicester City this season would be mid-table. I can't see anything worse than that, even with quite a significant points deduction. The squad that we've got, like I said, even if we lose players, it's young, it's quick, it's exciting. There are some experienced players mixed in with that, like Bobby De Cordova-Reid, Jordan Ayew, who's actually looked quite good in pre-season so far. So I think now, especially with the new manager, there is actually quite a bit of positivity around Leicester, despite the off-the-field turmoil that's still going on.
Yeah, what's your take on the argument that Sheffield United were a year one parachute team who were deducted 2 and finished on pitch 24 points ahead of the team that they played in the playoffs. Therefore, if you don't want, look, it won't be as extreme as last year, surely not, but if you want a year one parachute team to not finish in the playoffs, you probably have to deduct them the way things are going. Should we say 20, 18, something like that? Do you kind of buy that argument? It feels reasonable to me.
I mean, I'm sure there's lots of fans in the Championship that would love that to happen. I think, the frustrating thing with PSR at the moment and the punishments is that it almost feels like they make it up on the spot, really, on how many points they dish out to clubs. And we know what happened 2 years ago. We clearly upset the EFL with how we operated. We got relegated and, we had PSR problems, and we went and gave Harry Winks £90,000 a week. We went and gave Connor Cody 70 grand.
I'm imagining that Mr. Bean gif in the car like that, yeah?
Yeah, so, I would say I think it's fair, that they are probably going to want to throw the book at us. But, Yeah, if we're given, let's just say, let's just say 12 points, a 12-point deduction. I think Leicester City will still finish in the playoffs. I don't know what you think about that. I think with the squad that we've got, I think a 12-point deduction would still have us in the playoffs. I think it would all but rule out any form of automatic promotion. I think that's a certainty. And Leicester City, in the playoffs against some of the teams that will be there, you'd probably back them to get promoted through the playoffs. So I agree with what you're saying, that maybe for some other teams that will be in and around Leicester this season, they might feel that a punishment, whatever it is, isn't enough if we're still going to get promoted. But from a Leicester point of view, the club itself still feels quite hard done to, it seems. A club that aimed for the stars. The club feel like they have been punished for ambition. We tried to push for Champions League football, and it's at that moment where all the problems have kind of started from. That's where they've come from. When if you budget for European football and you get relegated, there's no way back from that, really, with PSR. Of course, we've not helped ourselves along the way. We just bought Oliver Skipp for 25 million. That's a questionable fee to spend on one player who barely played last season, really. So we've made our mistakes, but I think a significant deduction in the range of 20 points that some people talk about, I think that would maybe be a little bit harsh, to be honest, mate. Seen as though, what is it for administration? 9, is it for administration?
12 for administration.
12. Yes, anything over that seems harsh in my eyes, but of course I'm biased. I am biased, so.
Oh God, I've got so much to say after that answer. So I kind of agree with you. I'm a bit conflicted on Leicester because I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to a Leicester fan. I do agree about the stupidity of PSR, that you do feel like if you're at this level, it stops you getting to this level, and that's that applies down all these stupid chasms we've got in English football, from Champions League elite to regular Premier League to parachute to standard EFL. It kind of ring fences all of the chasms, which are stupid in the first place. I'm glad you pitched it as when you did, because then I do feel that the way Leicester have then conducted themselves since then has not been the greatest, has it? And you've kind of mentioned about Winks and Dewsbury Hall and that Mavididi, I guess that summer, and then not handing the accounts in. And we think if they had handed the accounts in, the EFL would have said, look, no, you can't pay them, much. So I can kind of see both sides of it. And how do you feel about the perception of Leicester? Because let's be honest, 10 years ago, or not quite, that club was, everybody loved them. And they feel quite disliked now. Is that reasonable?
It feels that way, but it's not just fans from other clubs. I think Leicester fans, their opinion on the people that run the football club has changed. We had that heartbreaking event, in 2018 where the owner passed away, and that tragic
felt like a real turning point, didn't it?
Yeah, because although we did win the FA Cup after that, and we had a European semi-final, but the recruitment model, some of the decisions, the club didn't operate the same way after that, in my opinion. Top, who's the current owner, Vishay's son, of course, he never expected in his wildest dreams that he would be put into this role so young. I'm sure it was something later down the line that was thought about, but so he's had a tough time, of course he has. But the director of football, at the club, which I'm sure you've read about, he has made some absolute clangers over the years, and nothing happens. There's no punishment for him. That he doesn't lose his job. Nothing happens. There's no help that's brought in to surround him. So that's why Leicester fans themselves feel quite upset with the current owners. I think even as recent as 4 years ago, the Athletic did a poll, and Leicester were at the very top for the opinion of their owners. I think it was like 91%.
Can I just quickly dive in there? I did the same and had them top a couple of years ago, and I did it a few days ago, and I had them third bottom above I think I had the Pozzos above them, possibly.
Yeah.
I had Mr. Chansiri Wednesday, Mr. Illa Charlie, and then King Power. There, you can check out that video. But yeah, sorry, continue. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and we just feel like the club is being mismanaged as it is. But back to PSR, I can see why Leicester are becoming disliked because of how we operated, and it almost seems like it's just the other teams that have been punished for PSR that are on our side, if you know what I mean. I know that's how it feels, but I'm angry with the board. I blame the board for some of the, for the PSR issues and things like that. But if I put myself in their shoes, I can see why they've kind of had a siege mentality type of thing where they've said, to the authorities basically, because at the end of the day, as I said earlier, this all stems from being ambitious, spending money to try, because we used to sell a big talent every year, as you know. N'Golo Kante, Danny Drinkwater, Harry Maguire, Riyad Mahrez, Ben Chilwell, Wesley Fofana. And the one year where Leicester thought, you know what, we're going to keep hold of all of our best players to give Brendan Rodgers the best chance. It was that year that we finished 8th, and then the following year we got relegated. So, and that's what's done us. And since then we've just been trying to play catch up. So I can see where the club are coming from, where they feel hard done to. But at the end of the day, they're paid to look after the club, to have the club in the best place possible. And at the moment, they're not doing that. 2 relegations in 3 years, 2 PSR breaches. The actual business seems like it's failing as well. There is problems, and Leicester fans aren't happy.
You mentioned about assets being sold. It feels very different than 2 years ago. I said this to a Southampton fan the other day, where there was like a Livramento, Ward-Prowse, Teller, and for Leicester, Maddison and Barnes, whoosh, that was like 75, 80 million, just like that. It doesn't feel... it feels rather that Leicester and Southampton shipped out the big assets 2 years ago, and, unless you're very lucky and recruit well, which you're just saying that you haven't particularly, you build another asset. Although we're even at this stupid point where Ipswich make a great signing like Liam Delap, but you can only get him in the building with a £30 million release clause, and then off they go after that. But that's another rant of mine. But what's going to be the approach this summer then? Because normally the parachute payments do have to be supplemented and the wages do have to be cut, don't they?
Well, I think last time Leicester were relegated, there was a 30% cut squad across the squad. Of course, we then brought in a lot of money, James Maddison, Harvey Barnes. Naturally, as the years have gone on since then, the squad is, there's less sellable assets in there. There are the 2 big ones currently, Mads Hermansen and Bilal El Khanous. Similarly to Delap, it is rumoured, not confirmed, but it is rumoured that El Khanous does have a release clause of around 25 million, which is only a couple million more than what we bought him for. So that's not great. Yeah. But
it's
maybe
still good. It's still good in terms of turnover and balance sheet.
That's
I know.
true. Yeah, that's true. Maybe it's the only way we could have brought him to the club, right?
Exactly,
to have that release clause. I am a little bit concerned that we're now on the 22nd of July and there hasn't been much movement, because, I remember back to 2 years ago, Leicester got a lot of their outgoings done quite early. The squad was settled. And I looked at the likes of Leeds and Southampton, and their squad there was still a lot of movement when the season started. And
go figure, Ipswich and Leicester stole a march, didn't they? They were 10 points clear by like the end of September, weren't they? So
exactly,
good point.
Yeah. So I think there's concern there, because the last thing you want is, Bilal El Khanous could start the first game against Sheffield Wednesday. A week later, he could be gone, and that's no good, in my opinion, for the squad. Yeah. So there is a discussion going on, a debate within the fans now, that do you take cut price deals for players? I mean, Mads Hermansen, a year ago, Chelsea came sniffing. We told them £40 million. And at the moment, he's been linked to West Ham. He's 24 or 25, one of the two.
He's going to be worth a hell of a lot, isn't he? Yeah.
But right now, there's a fee of 25 million to West Ham being spoken about, which is, a lot of Leicester fans aren't too happy about that. We think we can get more, but clubs smell the blood with Leicester. They know that they're not in the best of positions financially. They know that they've got PSR concerns.
Sorry to interrupt. There could be a business plan applied where Leicester don't even necessarily get final say on,
Yep.
well, we don't want to sell for that price. Well, we think you should.
Yeah, well, that's it, mate. And we're not expecting too many incomings. And I think the wise thing to do would be to not do what we did 2 years ago. Try and do as best you can with the squad that you've currently got. Don't go spending big money and big wages on Premier League aging journeymen, whatever you want to call them. But yeah, I would rather personally, I would take a cut price deal for Mads Hermansen. I would take a cut price deal for Bilal El Khanous if it means that your business is done early. You know what you've got in the kitty. If you do have a few million to throw at a striker or something like that, get it done early so that there's less turbulence when the season starts. Because I think we know we're going to be getting a deduction at some point. We need basically the less turbulence, the better, I think, with Leicester at the moment. So,
last question. When you're talking about points deduction numbers, is your brain half going, well, it could be 9 in September and then it could be 6 in, assuming Leicester decide to hand in their figures on time on December the 31st this time, could there be more problems? Because I know Mr. Maguire, when I spoke to him, said there might be an issue with the next. I know you essentially don't get punished twice. So it could be like, I don't know, if it was -9, it could then be -3 on top of it because you've essentially already been punished for the first 2 years of that period. But is your brain kind of concocting, well, we might not be out of the woods and ask me at the end of the season, right?
Yeah, I think a part of me is quietly optimistic. And the reason for that is because a lot of us, we were convinced that last season in the Premier League, we were going to have a big one. And I know we got off on that loophole that's been spoken about, a lot. I'm not saying we're going to get off.
One man's loophole is another man's law.
Yeah, exactly. But I think we know we're getting one this season. Like I said earlier, I think, we're ruling out top two. A lot of Leicester fans are ruling out top two, regardless of what the deduction is. If the league is as competitive as it has been before, it's going to be difficult to finish in that top two as it is, let alone when you introduce a points deduction into it. Anything under 15, and I think playoffs is still on. If another one comes later down the line, honestly, I'm not thinking about that just yet, Ben. I'll worry about that in December or something. I'm worrying about the first one first. But yeah, my personal aim is with a deduction playoffs, and hopefully we go through there because, as we all know, winning the playoff final is the best way to go up.
Absolutely. There we go. Brilliant stuff, Lox. And look, I know there's been a lot of kind of back and forth, but particularly between sort of Leeds fans and Leicester fans and Ipswich fans and Leicester fans. But you can see clearly there are self-aware Leicester fans who don't want to do the Mr. Bean gif, who are kind of understanding. And I do think there is a PSR argument as well as, Leicester have done a bit of housery over the last couple of years. I think two things can be true at the same time there. Lox, I've just appeared on it. Plug the channel, mate.
Yeah, Blue Tinted Glasses, a Leicester fan channel. There's lots of us who do different bits and bobs every week, multiple shows and videos a week. So we'll be covering lots of stuff throughout the season. We do great analysis as well. So if your team does play Leicester at some point, we will be covering some tactical analysis. So yeah, come check us out.
Are you looking forward to a nice deflected last-minute equaliser in that game?
No, not at all.
There you go. Brilliant stuff, Lox. And right in front of Lox's lovely face at the moment, if you click up there, you can see my interview. We're talking a bit about Ipswich, a bit about Leicester over there. So when you click up there, and then you can subscribe while you're there. Go and check it out.